the science backs us up. You know, when we rely on logic and facts, they really point towards policies that are supposed to protect the people, the environment, and the economy of the West. My name is Emily Walsh, and I am the Clean Energy Policy Advisor for the state of Nevada. And what that means is that I'm our policy analyst and act as our expert witness when we intervene in Public Utilities Commission proceedings. I write expert witness testimony that represents the interests of Nevadans and advocates usually against the utility and trying to get us to have cleaner, more affordable, reliable energy, and overall just try to reduce our emissions in the state. For me, I feel like I was always kind of aware, or I never had a moment of like light bulb. I grew up south of Reno, Nevada. I was a little bit more in the county, but just barely. And I was lucky enough to have a huge backyard with a lot of our natural flora. So we had a lot of sagebrush, bitterbrush, rabbit brush, lots of brushes, and these really big rocks. And so when I was a little kid, I would be out there with my cousins or with my brothers, and we would be playing mountain lion on the rocks in our backyard. I also was really lucky in that my family went camping to Pluma-Eureka State Park, which is in California, but it's still in the Sierra Nevadas and in the Tahoe National Forest. And we would go for 2 or 3 weeks every summer. And so some of my earliest memories are of just being outside. Additionally, I grew up next to Lake Tahoe. I learned to swim in Lake Tahoe. And so for me, it was more a realization that not everybody just had that implicit understanding or exposure to the environment growing up, and that I had something really lucky. It does. Outside of Gray Eagle, California, it's in the Tahoe National Forest, and it's Pluma-Eureka State Park. It's a small California state park, and it's just where I have most of my core memories and where I really started to love the outdoors and the Sierra Nevada mountains. The second one would be up the north shore of Tahoe, because that's where I learned to swim, and now I recreate a little differently. I'm always out with my paddleboard and my dog, but when I really need to reconnect or ground myself, that's where I go. And the final place that holds a lot of importance for me is a grove of pinyon pine trees that's out a little bit further. It's between Carson City and Minden and Gardnerville in Nevada, and it's where we would go and cut our Nevada Christmas trees. Pinyon pines look a little bit more bushy, and so we would always joke it's our Christmas bush, but I still go out there and get a tree every year, and you just get to walk among these hills and the sagebrush, the juniper, and then the pinyon. I took a really roundabout way. I initially wanted to be doing something more social with policy, and then I thought I really wanted to go into international affairs. I ended up doing a master's program abroad in Germany, and then the pandemic happened. I took a lot of this quantitative statistical knowledge and I brought it back to Nevada, and I came home and I was like, I just need a job. So I looked up the registered lobbyists in the Nevada State Legislature, and I found somebody who was representing Keep Tahoe Blue, the Nevada Conservation League, and other organizations that I would have wanted to work for. I cold emailed them, and they hired me, and I was with them for about 2 years. And one of our clients was WRA, and that's how I got introduced into the utility regulation and energy world. I really loved it, and I didn't enjoy government affairs so much, so then I started looking for a more policy-based position that was going to be in energy and environmental advocacy. I was actually alerted by one of WRA's other employees that, hey, we're hiring a Nevada person, you would be a great fit, and it worked out very serendipitously. I think it's just where I was meant to be, even though originally I was like very far away, coming back, doing different things, but I'm really happy where I am now. The clarity and water purity of Lake Tahoe. Lake Tahoe is one of the clearest and deepest alpine lakes in the world, but in the past 100 years, we've lost so much of that clarity. And so I remember being a kid and hearing about, oh no, the lake lost another 3 feet of clarity. And what that means is we go and drop like a little white tag and we measure how deep we can see it. And it basically shows how much pollution is affecting the lake and how many other invasive species such as algae are contributing to the loss of clarity. And so keeping that lake pristine and able for everybody to enjoy instead of like treating it badly is really important to me. Yeah. I went really far. So I lived for probably a total of about 4.5 years in Germany in 3 different cities. And then I also was living in Sweden for about 6 months. And it was really eye-opening because I saw, one, a completely different environment. Germany was green in the middle of winter and Nevada is not. But additionally, I just saw a different way and culture of interacting with the environment around us. I kind of guess took nature for granted because it was so close and accessible and I grew up with it. But it was really enlightening to see how other cultures prioritize bringing nature inside to urban areas and interacting with like the environment around us. Taking walks everywhere. And there will be, on my way from where I lived in Sweden to where I was working, there would be 3 different parks I would have to cross through, and it was maybe a 1.5 mile long walk. So it was really interesting to see, 1, the different environments, but 2, the different ways that people still try to get out there and feel connected to our earth, even when we're living in the middle of a city. I love my state, and Nevada has sometimes been like considered by other states to be a wasteland, to just be a desert. And this place that we're filming right now really more looks like my home. There's so much beauty, people just have to take a little bit longer to really appreciate it. And every place deserves to be protected, even if you as an individual kind of like, oh, that looks brown. It does look brown, but there's also a whole environment and ecosystem there that's really special and unique. I liked working for WRA because I feel like I'm actively making a difference. I was able to have my testimony be referenced by our public utility commissioners in a rate case where we were able to, enact a kind of formula for bills that will help Nevadans like prioritize energy efficiency and control their bills. When we work in integrated resource planning dockets, and are advocating against new gas, instead trying to go into something more renewable, I can actually quantify, the tons of emissions that we're preventing from being released. And we're not always successful, but it's also like, if we're not trying, who else is going to? When we don't get the win, it's hard. But the way that I guess I carry on is it's, again, who else is gonna be doing it? There is a need for this point of view to be represented. Nevadans have a right to have the health of their environment, the health of their cities, landscapes, state, be represented and advocated for. And so even if we're not successful, that doesn't mean that we didn't do a good job or we aren't doing the right thing. What gives me hope is the successes that we do get and the fact that the science backs us up. When we rely on logic and facts, they really point towards policies that are supposed to protect the people, the environment, and the economy of the West. So in terms of, when we have a rate case or when we do bring on a ton of megawatts of solar or wind, instead of relying on more fossil fuels, that's what gives me hope. We're making a change. We have a future. We just have to continue working towards it.